Good day, everybody. Welcome to Board Game Giants, the vintage version. And this is a show where we talk to people who are vintage board game collectors and we get to know them a little bit. And today we have Christian on, and he is a person that I met on my Facebook page who is a board game collector. And so, hey, Christian, it is good to have you on the show. How are you today?
I'm doing good. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you. I wanted to say thank you also for all your support after my channel had gotten hacked a few months back. Thanks for messaging me and just doing that. It meant a lot. Just wanted to say thank you for that, for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely, of course, because I mean, you're one of my favorite channels to watch, and I was pretty distraught when I saw that happen. In fact, like I've told you, I've been toying with the idea of, I do have a channel, but I don't have but maybe one video on it. It's a very old video of me sledding in my backyard when it iced over here on a little like a little radio flyer type toboggan sled thing.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing I have on there, and it's not edited or anything. So I haven't dabbled, but I've been wanting to start a channel to do board game reviews, but I just, especially after you had yours hacked, I've been kind of hesitant to do it. Plus, I don't know as much about editing the videos and things like that. I'd like to learn. And so one day I would like to try to, do a channel where I do, like you do, where you do kind of unboxing reviews, that sort of thing. And then I really like the big game hunting that you do, where you go to the thrift stores and film you looking at the different games.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. And if you ever do get a channel started, please let me know, and I'll be sure to link up with you on there and try to give you some support and stuff, because it looks like you got a lot of games back there.
Oh, yes. Much to my wife's chagrin.
Yeah, how many do you have?
Well, I tried to get a count one day, and I think I tallied around 300 or so, but I'm thinking right now I'm probably getting closer to 4. I mean, I don't have an exact number yet, but I'm thinking that it's probably getting closer to 400, but it's definitely over 300.
Yeah, and those things collect pretty quick, once you start collecting, the next thing you know, your entire garage is full.
Yes, I've got at least 1, 2, 3. I'm in the garage right now, and there's 3 shelving units full of board games, and then I actually had to spill over into another room. There's at least a couple of shelving units in this other room that I have, and I can I can transition to that other room to show that collection as well. But I mean, that's the bulk of my collection is in these 2 rooms.
Yeah, it looks like our garage is pretty much full right now, and I've had to sell a lot of stuff off. So, what got you into collecting the board games, the older games? When did you start?
Well, it started when I was younger. I was probably, I want to say maybe 5 or 6 years old, if I remember correctly. Back in the 1970s. I'm dating myself by saying that, but anyway, it was really my mom who's no longer with me. I lost her back in 2014. And what it was I remember the first couple of gateway games that got me started was Monopoly. I know Monopoly gets a bad rap. Everybody talks trash about it, but excuse me. I enjoyed it because my mom bought just the regular plain Jane Monopoly. There obviously back then there was no special editions or any kind of specialized Monopoly game, and we played that, and I remember enjoying it. And another game that I remember her getting was Mousetrap. Kind of one of the not the ideal one, but the later one by, I guess, is Milton Bradley or whatever version, and I remember we played it, and I remember at first playing with just the parts to it, and then I got into wanting to play the game. The other thing that got me liking board games, especially the vintage ones, was every time we would play a board game, me and my mom, if I lost, I remember I would throw a big fit. I would just make a big deal out of it that I lost. And so she finally got to where I noticed for a while I was on a winning streak, and then I asked her, I said, how come I'm winning so much? And she's like, well, I'm letting you win. And I'm like, well,
Ah,
why? She said, because I don't want to listen to you whine and gripe and complain. And she said, it's just a game. It doesn't matter whether you win or lose. I mean, it's just all about having fun playing the game. And I feel like I grew up a little bit that day when she told me that. And so I started realizing, okay, it's the board games is not as much about winning or losing. I mean, yeah, it's great to win and
sure.
it's not as great to lose, but it's about, for me, it's about the social networking, especially at this particular point in time. It's,
Oh
for
yeah.
me, more important to try to socialize with family or friends, and board games are just really good for that. You can only connect so much via Facebook and other social media websites, but actually sitting down around a table, because I remember doing that as a kid as well. We'd go over to a friend's house, they'd pull out a board game or something, and we would play, and everybody would be laughing and cutting up and making jokes, and it just made for a really good time. And my deal is, right now I'm just more, it's a hobby and I'm a collector. But as far as my issue is finding like-minded people locally to want to play board games, because my wife's not interested. My daughter is kind of interested, but there's some games, like I played King Oil with her one day, and afterwards she's like, I don't want to play again. I think it was a little over her head. uh, but I was like, really? I mean, that was great. I mean, I want to play again. And she's like, I don't want. I want to go do something else. So, I mean, like I said, it's mainly finding like-minded people locally that are into the hobby as well, and wanting to play board games. And I've yet to really find that.
Yeah, board games are great. I mean, I think they're a great way to socialize. I think it's a great way to, especially if you're going out on a date or something like that with somebody. My wife and I play board games and card games all the time, and we still do. It's
Right.
just it's a great way to socialize, and it's a lot of fun, especially with some of the older games that are just larger than life. So,
Right, and you mentioned that. You mentioned that with the older games. Your question about what got me more into the vintage games is
yeah,
the games nowadays, like, they just they're kind of lackluster for my liking. I mean, the games, the older vintage games, just have an appeal that these. I'm not trying to put the newer games down. I'm just saying, for me, the time period that I grew up, the games that they're coming out with now are pretty basic, and the ones from when I was growing up, it's like they're unique, and there's a certain appeal to them that the games nowadays just don't have.
yeah, there's a lot of games out there. A lot of the ones are meeple based, and it just
Hmm.
depends on how you are. I'm not much of a fan of the meeple based games, and maybe I just haven't played enough. But I was saying before, I'm so used to some of these larger than life games like Battle Masters that are just huge, and they've got all this great artwork and stuff. And and I always said, if I were to find like a dinosaur game, I would love to see dinosaurs in it. And a lot of them that I see nowadays don't really have that. They just have boards and little pieces and things that you move around. So I kind of miss that. But there are games out there like that still. That's what I like about the older ones too. So
Hmm.
speaking of them, what are your favorites, or a couple of your favorites?
Well, the like I mentioned, it's kind of hard to narrow it down to just one whole board game that's like my absolute favorite. I could probably go with the top two that are probably, more of my favorite. It would be Dark Tower and Fireball Island, and the reason being is Dark Tower. The whole story behind it, how the people came up, they got sued because those people came up with the idea that proposed to Milton Bradley, and they rejected it, and then all of a sudden they came out with a game that was supposedly similar, and so they got sued, and so not as many copies were made, and they didn't stay on the shelves very long. So obviously it's a more rare board game, and I'm glad to have it in my collection, which it's complete, by the way. Well, actually, it was missing a few of the red pegs, and I had an extra older Battleship game that was actually my wife's, that when she played with her brother growing up, and I took a few of the red pegs from that, and they're the same exact pegs. So I was able to complete that board game, and it still has the original replacement light bulb and the tube to remove the light bulb. So like I said, I'm glad to have that in my collection. It's unique. It combines a board game with the old school electronic tower, and the artwork is just unique and phenomenal. I think that it's just a very unique board game. And then I've yet to play it with somebody, and I actually purchased it off of the Dark Tower guy off of eBay.
Oh yeah.
He gave me a pretty good deal on it, and he said anytime if I want to send the tower to him, because I think the brushes may be kind of worn, and it could probably stand to, because sometimes you got to shake it to get it to work. But like I said, I got that, and then Fireball Island. I was in our when I was a kid. I had always wanted Fireball Island. When I saw the commercials, I'm like, I gotta have that game. And my mom's like, no, it's too much money. And so we never ended up getting it. And because like you said, that's one of those, it's larger than life. And one day we were at our local Goodwill, and I saw it on a shelf, and it had a price tag on it for $5.99. I grabbed it. I said, I'm not leaving the store without this. I told my wife, I don't care if you get mad. I'm not leaving the store without this game. And it wasn't complete, but I was able to get it pretty close to complete.
That's amazing, man. I mean, that game, I've seen it go for like $250. You know, I think I got my copy for about 120, and I had to replace some of the pieces and stuff. But it's definitely a game, and Dark Tower, of course, is a game I really like a lot. And you know, it has a story too.
When I told my wife that, because you know, she gives me grief a lot about you know, the collection I have. She's like, you got way too many board games, and you need to start thinking about getting rid of some. And I'm like, well, you do realize that some of these I could conceivably sell for $200 or $300, like Fireball Island, Dark Tower, Hero Quest. And she's like, because I got Hero Quest for about $60. I was able to find somebody that had a complete copy, and I got it for $60. And when I told her that, her jaw kind of dropped, and she's like, what? Somebody will actually pay that kind of money for a board game? And I said, yeah, if you find the right buyer. And then I was telling a friend of mine about it, and he said, yeah, but you actually have to sell the game to get that money.
When I got Hero Quest, I had to actually trade about 30 or 40 games for it. I had just the lady was looking to make a collection, and she had the game. Her family didn't want her to get rid of it. She said, hey, it's my game. Let me get rid of it, which I'm glad she did. I just got we made a good deal. I think I probably spent about $50 total to get all these games at thrift and all. But speaking of games, you want to show us your collection, Mr. Christian?
Yes. So I'll start over here. Let me flip this camera around so you can see. So there's one copy up there of Axis and Allies. I had to get 2 copies of that. That's one of from the Game Master series. That's one of the original, the Axis and Allies. So I got 2 copies of it so that I could get one complete copy out of it. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's just a plain Skittle scoreball. This one's kind of like a reproduction. It's not an original Skittle scoreball. There's a small billiards table. I actually picked up this Stop Thief game because I remember I had that when I was younger, and it's a pretty awesome game. And I got that pretty cheap for, like, I want to say maybe 10 or 15 bucks in a neighboring town. I was able to pick that up pretty cheap. This one here is Sharky's Diner. It's exactly like the Jaws game that came out back in the, I guess, what was it, the late 70s, early 80s. But this one actually has extra pieces because the original Jaws game, I think, had just the blue pieces and the white pieces. This actually has blue and identical yellow pieces. So you can put more pieces in the shark's mouth. And it just has rubber bands.
So I saw I saw you have War of the Ring over there.
Where's it? Where do you see that?
War of the Ring. It's on the edge, on the right edge, like past Jeopardy.
Oh yes. I actually got that at a rummage sale when I want to say I was a teenager, and somehow I managed to hold on to it all these years, and it's complete. Wow. I mean, it's punched, but I mean, it's complete, and it's an original from SPI. You know, it's not the one that, you know, they came out with later on. This is the original, and I'm hanging on to that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think that goes for some money too now. I can't remember how much, but
right.
Yeah, cool.
Right. So, like I said, I've got, you know, some of these other games. Of course, Gestures is a little bit newer. I had never even heard of this Limits, but I saw it at this Captain John's sport fishing tournament game. I had seen it in a thrift store, so I picked it up, and it was complete. So I was like, well, that's cool. Maybe one day I'll actually find some like-minded people and play it. And this, of course, is that Star Wars VCR game. I used to be more into Star Wars, but and I'll probably get some hate for this, but ever since they, Lucas sold it to Disney and they came out with these newer movies, I'm just really disenchanted with it. And I like the older movies, but I'm just not really into the newer ones. But this is an older, older board game with of course, I do have a VCR, so I mean, I could conceivably play this. And then here's Superpowers. I think I had never heard of this, but this reminds me, it's like kind of identical to Axis and Allies. It's in the same kind of vein as Axis and Allies. So it's it's a world domination game. It's kind of like Risk and Axis and Allies. I've got this version of Clue. I do have a few versions of Clue. One that I'm glad that I have too is this Restoration Hardware one here. That has like the rooms. You see it'll have the little diorama of the rooms, and it's kind of gold plated, and it's a big wooden board, and I picked that up for about $25.
Nice.
And these go for these usually go for at least a couple hundred or more.
Wow.
So I was glad to get that copy, and of course I have this is the original Battleship that that was my wife's and brother-in-law's that she had, growing up that they played. That's the one that I said I took a few of the red pegs out of to complete my Dark Tower game. Of course, I've got all the King's Men. I've got several versions of Monopoly. I've got an older version of Life, Lost Treasure, Songburst, Hugger Mugger, the Tycho version of Jeopardy, Times to Remember. Of course, I've got just a Whitman's, just a plain Jane chess game here. A lot of these here, these Monopoly and like this chess game, they actually came in a big box. Like it was a lot of board games somebody was selling, and so I picked a bunch of those up. And then, of course, I have Sorry Sliders. My daughter and I played that before, and we enjoy it. I have a Lord of the Rings chess set. It's not a high quality chess set. The pieces are plastic, but they're made to look like the characters, and so I thought that was kind of neat. I have Input here. That's just one of those Milton Bradley games. It's got the little pieces that look like little computer chips, and I've had that one for a good while. My mother-in-law had actually given me a copy of one of these copies of Risk, but it wasn't complete. So I found another copy and I bought it. And here again, I've made one copy out of two. And then I have go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, sometimes you have to do that. You have to double up.
Mm-hmm.
I have to do that a few times.
And then my wife's like, well, are you going to get rid of one? And I'm like, maybe eventually, or maybe one day in my retirement years, I'll part it out on eBay or something, make some extra money. I have the deluxe version of Wheel of Fortune. I've got, a little knockoff Battleship game, Travel Connect 4, Poker Tiles, Corridor. My daughter and I have played this Corridor. That's a pretty fun game where you put the little wooden fences up to try to block the other person from getting to the other side. I've got a travel boggle game. This one just is where you just move it's got a little scroll. It doesn't have the actual cubes. It's just paper inside that has the different letter cubes on there. Depiction of them. Here's a golf dice game. I've got Connect 4. I believe this may have been my wife's too growing up, that her and her brother played. I've got some, just card games here, Monopoly card games. I've got Big Boggle. I've got a set that's like a casino set that's miniature, like a travel one that, you can, and it even has a little small roulette wheel. I've got Stage 2. Here's another one that my daughter and I enjoyed playing, was Lie Detector.
Yeah, that's a cool one. Yeah, we have that one too.
Yep, and I was actually able to get it. It was incomplete when I got it, and I was able to get the extra cards I was missing, and so I was able to get it complete. This is Stage 2. This here is just the Oriental game of Go. Just it's
Okay.
kind of like the Oriental version of chess. They're kind of like their version of it with the little. It's kind of like Othello, and that's actually where Nolan Bushnell got the idea to name his company Atari,
Mhm.
because when you surround your opponent, it's called an Atari, and
Oh yeah,
that's
I
that's
remember.
where
So,
yeah that's where he got.
so what else have you got on the other side? I saw you had some
Oh,
other.
yeah, on this, you're talking about this shelf unit here.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So I have like this game here's the Generals. That's basically identical to Stratego, but it's electronic, and it has what's called an arbitrator, where you put the pieces, you take the pieces that you're attacking, and you put them on the side of the board, and the computer will determine who wins. In other words, you don't ever know what piece it is that your opponent that you just defeated or just
Yeah.
defeated you. Your opponent won't know. Y'all are both blind. So whereas in Stratego, you usually you have to let the opponent know, okay, you got my scout or something like that.
Oh yeah.
This is actually, it has that like got a computerized brain, they call it, and it basically determines who wins each battle. This right here in this Amazon box is broadsides and boarding parties.
Oh, that's a
The box was, when I ordered it off of eBay, it would just had a piece of the box, like part of the box in there, and I think it is missing one of the masts, but other than that, it's complete. It
right.
has everything else in there, and that's another game that I think is really unique and interesting because it's larger than life. It's got the two ships and all the masts, and it's got the board with the pirate theme, and that's another one that I thought was really neat. Of course, I've got Dragon Master, that card game, and the guy, I think, what's his name, Bob Pepper. I think he's the one that did the artwork for Dark Tower. He also did the artwork for this Dragon Master card game, and I remember watching your review of it, yeah, and your demonstration of it, and I enjoyed that that, in fact, that's kind of what prompted me to seek it out. A lot of times when I would see a video of yours and I would see a game and I'm like, oh, that looks like a good game, and then I'd be looking on eBay and I'd see one for a pretty good deal, and then I'd ask my wife, hey, you mind if I get this board game? I said, go
Yeah.
ahead, get it.
Yeah.
And yeah, uh, and then of course I have a few of these, in the wooden boxes that they put out. Some of these games like Risk, and you can't hardly read this, but this is Stratego
Hmm.
in the little wooden box editions, and I also have a couple of these of Clue. I had to get two of them to complete and make one set of this, but I do have that. So I mean and I do have several versions of Boggle. Like this one here's Scrabble version of Boggle.
Yeah.
I've got Word Yahtzee. This is a Star Wars Death Star Assault game. I've got Sharpshooters, and I also have the other game that was made called. I'm trying to
Last
remember what
chance.
the other
Last
what.
chance.
Yes, that's right. Last Chance. I also have that game somewhere. I've got it. It may be here or on another shelf, but I do have that one as well. But I
What?
also have. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw that there was there a shuffleboard game to the left? I saw on the camera there was a big game of some
Oh,
kind.
this one here. Are you talking about this one here?
Oh, it's to the left. It's like to the left of the shelf. Um, there it is. Yeah. What is that? Skittle Pool or something? Is that a game?
Oh yes, this
Oh,
is a newer version of Skittle Pool, but I actually have I also had picked up the original with Don Adams on it, so I
oh,
have both the original and the thing I like about this one is the original one by Aurora that has Don Adams on the cover. It only has the one of these, but this one actually has it on both sides. So
wow.
that's kind of what I liked about this one was it, you know, you you can actually go on the other side and aim and try to hit the billiard balls into the pockets. You're not limited to just being on the one side. So that's
Yeah.
kind of what I liked about that one.
I just noticed the size of it.
Yeah, it's a pretty good size, and like I said, whenever I do get games like that, especially if they come in the mail, my wife's like, "Your game came in." I was like, "Okay." She's like, "Where are you going to put it?" I'm like, "I'll figure something out." But yeah, so I mean, I've like I said, I mean, I could be here for a good while going through all of these, but I've obviously, I know you reviewed like I've got the Star Wars Epic Duels.
Yeah.
That one was listed as complete, but it was actually missing 2 of the hit point markers. I just replicate them. Sometimes I'll do that. I'll just replicate it. Like if I could photocopy it, I'll just replicate it, and it's not as big a deal to me because I mean it's just a marker. And then of course I got 2. I've got Star Wars Stratego, and then I've got 2 versions. I mean 2 copies of the Life, Star Wars Life: A Jedi's Path,
Great
because
game.
I did the same thing. Yeah, I had to actually make 1 copy out of 2, so that's another one that I did that with.
Sure.
And then another Star Wars game I have is this the Sarlacc Pit, Battle at the
Oh, yeah,
Sarlacc Pit game.
yeah.
And so that's another one I have. I've got this black box. I actually have another copy of it just for extra pieces. Uh, I have this. This is kind of neat. I've got the HeroScape, but this is the Marvel version of it. I think it was missing one of the little hit point plastic markers, but I can always order one of those off of eBay or something. But other than that, it's complete. So I do have that, and I've got a Star Wars Operation. I've got Othello. I've got Coca-Cola chess set. That was pretty neat that I was able to get that because I also collect Coca-Cola stuff, and so that kind of combined both of those things. I think this game here, Lionheart, I think it's pretty similar to Battle Masters
Kind of, yeah.
in some ways.
It's kind of similar.
Yeah.
It's smaller.
So I do have that. I've got this game, the Inventors, the World Game of Summer, which this basically is the same as the game Senate. I also have that as well. And the Senate game I have actually has the sticks that you throw instead of it comes with dice, but it also comes with the sticks that you throw to and it'll tell you how many spaces to move depending on how the sticks land. Of course, I had gotten this game for my wife, the golf version of Monopoly, and that was before I found out she wasn't really into board games.
Right.
And so I still have that. I've got
sorry, Christian. I was going to ask, are there any games you're planning on trying to get later on? Do you have any?
Yeah, one of them that I've kind of had on my list for a while, and I may have mentioned it to you, is It from the Pit. I had that game when I probably, several years ago, I had that game. It wasn't complete, but I don't have it anymore. And I look them up online. I did see somebody selling one. I think it was in Austin, Texas or something. And I think I even messaged them, but they never replied back to me. They were selling it for like 20 or 30 bucks or something. And I'm like, that would be great if I could get that. But,
yeah.
They never messaged me back. So, I mean, I've been on the lookout for it. That's one that I know for sure. I've been kind of looking at getting. And I do like a lot of the 3M and Avalon Hill bookshelf games. How 3M came out with the games and then Avalon Hill kind of took it over for a while. I know that I've also kind of looked at Richthofen's War, the Red Baron game. I've been looking at getting Squad Leader, and I just hadn't got around to getting them yet because I'm kind of holding out until I see them for a really good price because I don't want to spend like $60 or $70 for a game if I can help it. I have, but I try real hard not to. But like I said, this is just part of my collection. This is another one that I got. I got this off of eBay. I didn't even know it existed. This James Bond game, 007. It's actually like a little tile-based game, and it has poker chips. And I thought it was unique, so that's kind of why I picked it up. It was neat. I also picked this up, the Kool-Aid Kids trivia game. I actually played this with my daughter. And some of the trivia was, obviously it's more for people from back, my generation, because some of the questions my daughter definitely didn't know the answer to. So I was kind of like, well, some of this is going to be really hard for you because you don't know the answers to the questions.
Do you have any other games in the room?
Oh yeah, I've got a whole nother shelf. Let me show you over here. This is a new shelf I've started. So I actually had like some of these games are ones that I had, like this Boltenstein. I had that when I was younger, years ago when it came out, and the box is pretty beat up, but it is what it is. This radar search game, I don't know. I've heard people having the same issue where it doesn't work, like the buzzer doesn't work or whatever, and mine is not exempt from that. The buzzer doesn't work on it. I know there's a guy here locally that he normally uh, he normally redoes video game consoles and mods them, but I was going to see one day if he could take a look at it and see if he could fix it. But he's so busy right now because ever since he did some console for Metal Jesus Rocks, he dropped his name. His name's Matt Forrester, and he dropped his name. And ever since then, he's just been swamped with people mailing him consoles to redo. So I don't know when he'll ever have the time for it, but one day I'd like to get that running again. I do have the electronic version of Stratego here, from Milton Bradley. That's kind of similar to that Generals game, except that it's a little different. But I mean, I thought it was unique, so I picked it up. And then I have this newer version of Risk. I have this one here. It's kind of old and beat up, but it's 10-4 Good Buddy. It's just kind of reminded me of my childhood, growing up in the 70s and 80s. CB was big back then, and so that's kind of why I picked that up. Of course, here's my copy of. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I have to wrap it up in a little bit here. I can hear myself.
Okay, sure.
But do you have another shelf you can show me real quick?
Yeah, I actually, not in this room. I would actually have to go to another room where I have a couple extra shelving units.
Oh, that's okay. If you want, you can just send a couple of pictures or whatever, and I can.
I actually, I think I actually mailed you the pictures.
Oh, that's right, you did. I have it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, some of them may be cut off, but I try to get most of them into the picture. Like I said, I know you've only got so much time, and obviously, if I've got over 300 board games, would be here all evening showing you all the games I've got.
Well, I'm glad we got you on the show tonight, man, and thanks for sharing with us your story and just why you love games so much. You've got some there I definitely want to check out. War of the Ring was a game I was curious about, and what was the other one? Star Wars: A Jedi's Path. That's one I want to get to eventually.
I thought that for some reason I thought that you had that game and you did a review of it.
I did. It didn't belong to me. I borrowed it.
Oh, okay, I get you. Yeah, it's definitely. I had actually picked it up at a flea market, and when I got it, it wasn't complete, and I was kind of disappointed and bummed out. And then I don't remember if I'd found it online. I want to say I found the other copy online or something, and I purchased it, and then I got it, and I was able to. And I think it might have been missing one or two things, and then I was able to complete. Out of the two games, I was able to have one complete copy. Oh. And a lot of times, what I do is if I find a game that's not complete, I might pick it up anyway, because I'll look at one day getting the parts online, or sometimes I'll find another copy that's not complete, and then I'll turn two games into one.
Yeah, and I do.
So that way I have a complete copy. And actually, Fun City, it said it was complete when I bought it, and then I got it home and it didn't have the pawns. And I actually had a Sorry game, just an old Sorry game that wasn't complete, that I had picked up off of somebody, and the pawns are identical. So I was able to use the pawns from Sorry in Fun City, and I was able to complete that game. So that was kind of a neat deal. It worked out well for me.
Well, thank you, Christian. I appreciate you coming on, man. And I'll have this video up soon. And we'll keep in touch, okay?
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate all your assistance, and I definitely appreciate your channel, because like I said, I'm so glad you got it back, because there's a few YouTube channels I like to watch. Yours is one of my favorites. And I was really bummed there for a while when you had that issue where your channel got hacked, and I was like, man, I'm not going to be able to see any new board game videos, because I watch others, and to be honest with you, I've watched others, and not to put anybody down. I'm just saying yours is probably my favorite to watch, because I like the format, where you introduce the game, you introduce yourself, you introduce a game, and you say, this is a game we're going to be reviewing. And then you get right into it, and you kind of give a brief overview of how to play the game, and you show all the components. And then at the end, you give your final thoughts as, kind of a review and a wrap up. Like, this is what I thought about the game. Yes, I liked it, or it's kind of okay, but, it may just be a filler game or something. And I appreciate that, because it gives me perspective, and it makes me think, okay, is that a game that I'm going to want to buy? Is it something that I'm interested in getting? Because it may be a game that I look at and I'm like, I've never seen that game before. I've never heard of that game. And it kind of piques my interest. And that's what I also enjoy about board games, is the thrill of the hunt, so to speak. Is you go to a thrift store and you'll find some game just tucked away in there, and you pull it out and you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I found this game. I had it when I was younger, or I always wanted it and I never was able to get it. And then it's on sale pretty cheap, and you get it. And then what's really good is when you get it home and it's complete.
Yeah,
that's what really is a good thing. But yeah, I enjoy it. I was happy to be here and do this video. Like I said, I do want to plan sometime on trying to possibly upload videos onto my channel, or create another channel specifically for that, for board games, because I'm definitely interested in doing reviews of board games and unboxings and things like that.
Well, I look forward to seeing it whenever you get it up. But yeah, keep in touch with me. So
sure.
Thanks, Christian. This is Christian Moss, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all enjoyed it. We'll have another Vintage Board Game Giants episode up. If you're interested in being in one, just feel free to leave a comment below, and we will see y'all later. Christian, thanks again, buddy, and appreciate you.
You bet. Have a good one.
You too.
Good night. Thanks.
Thanks, Christian.